Before we start the story, subscribe to the channel so you will get our new videos. And tell me, where from are you watching? Let's start it. The very first moment happened. I felt it before I fully understood it, as if the warm American afternoon itself leaned closer to whisper something I wasn't ready to hear. The sun pouring down generously over quiet suburban street, filling the air with a mixed scent of rosemary, smoke from a nearby grill, freshly cut grass, and that familiar stillness that settles into neighborhoods where nothing dramatic is supposed to happen. And I was standing barefoot on my small back patio with a basket of warm laundry resting against my hip, my mind lost in routine, when an unmistakable awareness traveled slowly up my spine. Not fear, but recognition, the strange sensation of being seen. And when I turned my head against the bright light, I saw my neighbor by his grill, flames dancing lazily beneath the grate, his posture relaxed yet attentive, his presence calm in a way that felt almost intimate. And when our eyes met, he didn't rush to look away or hide behind distraction. He simply smiled, a soft, steady smile that felt too sincere to dismiss. And then, in a voice gentle enough to sound harmless but honest enough to shake me, he said he really hoped I wasn't married. And although the world around us continued normally with cars passing in the distance and birds calling from the trees, something inside me quietly tilted, because in that single sentence he had stepped into a part of my life I thought I had carefully locked away. My name is Elena Brooks, and until that afternoon my life had been shaped by caution and emotional restraint. I was 32 years old, recently divorced, living alone in a modest rental house at the edge of a deliberately unremarkable neighborhood chosen not for excitement but for safety, a place of trimmed lawns, identical mailboxes, and predictable days where nothing unexpected demanded feeling. And less than a year earlier, I had walked away from a marriage that didn't break through shouting or betrayal, but through years of neglect so subtle it taught me to doubt my own needs, leaving me convinced that shrinking myself was the same as being strong. And so I filled my days working remotely as an editor, fixing other people's stories while avoiding my own, and my evenings with quiet routines like watering plants, folding laundry, washing dishes, and telling myself solitude was peace. Caleb Morgan, my neighbor, moved in a few weeks after I did, and from the beginning his presence felt different, not loud or intrusive, but grounded, attentive, as if he moved through life with intention rather than urgency, working outdoors with his sleeves rolled up, caring for plants like they mattered, grilling in the afternoons instead of at night, as though he preferred honesty in daylight. And at first our interactions were nothing more than nods and small waves across fences, which I told myself was enough, because I wasn't ready for connection, and certainly not hope. Yet small things began to accumulate in ways I couldn't ignore. A package mistakenly delivered to his porch returned with a handwritten note wishing me a good day. My trash bins rolled back without a word. Extra tomatoes from his garden left by my door. Gestures so simple and kind they unsettled me more than grand attention ever could, because my past had taught me that kindness always came with a hidden cost. The day he spoke those words by the grill, it wasn't flirtation that frightened me, but sincerity. There was no pressure in his tone, or assumption in his eyes. Just a quiet honesty offered without demand. And I didn't answer him. I went inside instead, slid down against the door, and cried not because of him, but because his words reminded me of something I had forgotten, that I was allowed to be wanted, allowed to be seen, allowed to hope. And over the following weeks, although the neighborhood returned to its familiar rhythm, my inner world had shifted. Yet Caleb never repeated the comment or pushed for more. Instead, he remained consistently kind in ways that felt safe, offering help without insisting, smiling without expectation, waving every time our paths crossed, his restraint slowly turning fear into curiosity. And through observation more than conversation, I learned about him, that he was a landscape designer who believed spaces could heal people, that he lived alone in a house filled with sunlight and soft music during the day, that there was a gentleness in his routines that mirrored my own healing. And still the real struggle was inside me, because every kind gesture stirred the old fear that warmth was temporary and affection always turned into obligation. And one afternoon, while pruning a stubborn rose bush that refused to bloom no matter how carefully, I tended to frustration overwhelmed me unexpectedly, because in that plant I saw myself, alive but not growing. And when Caleb noticed he didn't take control or correct me, he simply showed me a gentler way, explaining patiently. And although the rose bush didn't bloom right away, it looked healthier, more hopeful, just like me. And from that moment, I allowed longer conversations, still casual and daytime safe, sharing that I worked with words because emotions were harder to manage, while he shared that designing landscapes was his way of creating second chances for neglected places. And as weeks passed, I noticed changes within myself. Laughter coming easier, windows left open, fear loosening its grip, until one ordinary afternoon under a clear sky, I finally spoke the truth out loud. That I wasn't married and hadn't been for a long time. And instead of triumph or expectation, his response was gratitude. Gratitude for honesty and trust. And in that moment, I understood that what was unfolding wasn't about romance alone, but about being seen in a way that allowed me to see myself again. Because Caleb never tried to fix me or rush my healing. His presence was steady like sunlight rather than fire, warm and consistent. And months later, when I noticed a rose bush blooming for the first time with pale petals opening toward the sky, I stood there quietly, realizing that healing doesn't announce itself loudly and love doesn't demand. Sometimes it simply waits patiently beside a grill in the afternoon light, hoping you'll be brave enough to turn around and let yourself feel again.